Well, hello, and welcome everyone. Welcome to this very special event for me, launching our second round of working with HealCommunity. And now we've got some traction under us, and I've seen the results of this, and I'm very excited to be here to talk to everyone because this is where I think healthcare needs to go for all of us. When we've got a health condition and we've tried our best to fix it and get healthier, and we've made some progress, but we're in the sand spinning our wheels. It's like the back tires keep going like this, and you're just not making the improvement you want. And HealCommunity has now been demonstrated to be tremendous. And so it's my pleasure to be here with my good friend, James Maskell. So first I'll say hello, James. Good to see you, man.
Great to be here with you. I'm really excited to reconnect and to spend this time together. Thank you.
Yes. So James and I met a number of years ago when I did an event called the Gluten Summit. And we kind of launched this concept of healthcare summits where a number of experts get together. And after we did the Gluten Summit, we had many of my friends called and said, "How did you do that? How did you do that? I want to do that. And I want to talk about brain, or I want to talk about cardiovascular health, or whatever the topic was, anxiety." And it kind of opened a new paradigm for people. And James and I spoke, and he had a similar question because he wanted to reach more people. And we had successfully done that with the Gluten Summit. And that started our journey together. And my talking about how we put this all together, and really it was our passion that fueled this thing and kept it so that we didn't get stuck in the sand. We had lots of spinning, but kept moving forward. So back up and then go forward, back up, then go forward, right? But we did it. And it was just a pleasure to work with James. And then when I did Betrayal, the autoimmune disease solution they're not telling you, in our first day of filming interviews of functional medicine experts, James and I got together and touched my heart so deeply. His openness and his honesty and his desire to help humanity. And I said, this is my friend for life. This guy, he and I are walking a very similar path. So it's really a pleasure now to theDr.com has worked with James and his HealCommunity in our first round with Elizabeth, and I'll introduce Elizabeth in just a moment. And the results were spectacular. People were so very grateful, and we'll talk more about that. But with that kind of an introduction, just that basic introduction, James, can you take over from here and tell us a little bit about when people are stuck in the sand spinning their wheels? What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Tom, it's great to be here. And, obviously you've been such a pioneer for functional medicine and for helping people get the tools that they need to heal. And, as I've been in this journey here for 17 years, you learn every day. The goal is still the same, right? How do we really help the most people heal? And ultimately, I know that functional medicine is a big part of that, and you've taken that so far forward with the summit. But I think, in the last few years, it sort of just became clear to me that there was like a huge missing gap right in the middle of functional medicine, which is really understanding if we're talking about root cause medicine, what is the biggest root cause? And I'm just going to shock you all right now. It's not gluten, right? Because I know it normally is gluten, but today it's not gluten, but I'm going to shock you about that. But second, ultimately, all of functional medicine is built on this new way of thinking about healthcare where people actually are in control, right? Where the doctor's no longer in control. And ultimately, when I started through my book, The Community Cure, I wrote that book, and it was really to showcase how I felt that if we wanted to have functional medicine reach everyone and fulfill its potential to heal everyone, it needed to be done in groups, because the outcomes were just so spectacular that I was seeing, out and around for a number of reasons. And so, for the last couple of years here now, we've been trying to work out how do we give everyone access to this. And that's taken me to, we've been working with like hospitals and systems and that kind of thing. But part of the reason I wanted to, why I was so excited with you is because you reach people around the world. And I'm sure that there are people who are listening here who don't have access to the kind of community and support that they need in order to stay healthy. And so that's why, this is such a great opportunity to touch in with your community.
You said a word there, which is going to kind of catch in people's minds, I think some of them groups. And, what are you talking about? And I just want to give the intro here that it was about 7 or 8 years ago that Cleveland Clinic welcomed resistantly the Institute for Functional Medicine to have a small little office on their campus. And it came from the top down. It was the chairman of the board that said, we're going to do this. And then everybody fell in line to do it. And so we had this little 1,800 square foot office on the edge of Cleveland Clinic campus. And it's a huge campus. But within 2 years, we had a 2-year waiting list, and we were the second floor of the main building of Cleveland Clinic. And we were so happy to see how it was being received in traditional medicine. As that progressed, it took 5 years of information gathering of people coming to Cleveland Clinic before we published what I think was the first science on this, comparing how did people do that came to the functional medicine clinic at Cleveland Clinic. And James is going to put up a couple of slides. And they compared 5,000 people who went through the Functional Medicine Center at Cleveland Clinic, and they compared with the same numbers of people going through the Family Medicine Center at Cleveland Clinic. Functional medicine versus Family Medicine Center. And the results were inescapable, that the people who went through functional medicine, the quality of their life, and there were many markers by which to determine quality of life, the quality of the life was so much better. Their symptoms got better, and some people got better at Family Medicine, Cleveland Clinic, but the volume of people got better, and not just with their complaint, but their cognitive function, their energy, their relationships, their life, the quality of their life got better. And I hadn't seen a study like that before, so we were tickled pink. The second study came out 2 years later that you see here on the screen in the British Medical Journal. The first one was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, arguably the most impressive health journal in the English language. And the second one in the British Medical Journal 2 years later, they took people at the Functional Medicine Center at Cleveland Clinic, and they compared those with people at the Functional Medicine Center at Cleveland Clinic who also went into group sessions. So they compared people at the Functional Medicine Center doing the functional medicine, working with their doctor, working with their functional medicine nurse, and they compared people in the Functional Medicine Center with people at the Functional Medicine Center working with their doctor, working with their nurse, who also participated in group sessions. And James, can you tell us what the difference was in that second study?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the first study showed functional medicine better than conventional care for chronic illness, and the second one was not only better outcomes, but also much lower cost. And and ultimately, the outcomes are generated. So you might think to yourself, well, if functional medicine is like hyper personalized, it's better to have it one-on-one. But what they showed is that it's actually better to have it in a group. Now, how could that possibly be, right? What could drive that possibility? And what I came to understand, through the work and looking at the research is that actually high social stress, and you might call it loneliness if you see here on the right, is actually the biggest driver of all-cause mortality, right? And in my book, I talked a lot about how, if you look at the chances of having these chronic illnesses, like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, even lung diseases, go up significantly, and Alzheimer's, with high social stress and high loneliness. And ultimately, what was happening in the group was a number of things. One, people were building new friendships, right? So there's enough time. The Cleveland Clinic groups were 10 weeks long. And so you had enough time, for people to build new friendships in the group, right? Because they're meeting together every week. The second thing is, it's the right structure for behavior change, right? And ultimately, all of functional medicine is built on people adopting new behaviors and maintaining those behaviors long-term. Right. And so that's what the group is really good for. And then the third part is, you're really just filling this gap that exists in medicine, which is that the protocol can be amazing, but ultimately it's not really, it's that information doesn't necessarily move the needle. It's about taking action on that information. And so, that was some of what drove those great outcomes. And ultimately, that they're doing things in the group. It's not just sitting around talking. They're implementing new healthy behaviors and then feeding back. How was it for them, right? How did that go to try and add this thing into your diet, take this thing out of your diet? How did it go to, add in this new thing? And actually hearing other people's experience of that is transformational, because I know you've seen this as well, Tom, is that, for people in your community who are maybe dealing with chronic illness, it could be profoundly isolating to have a chronic illness, because no one really knows what it's like to be like you.
That's exactly right. And one of the things that the British Medical Journal article showed for people who did functional medicine and group sessions was that feeling of being in community made a great difference. And the results were almost 30% better quality of life in the functional medicine people who also did the group sessions, which was startling. No one would have thought that, because we already knew quality of life was greatly improved by doing functional medicine, which has been my world for 40 years. And people get better, not just with their presenting complaint, but all the other little stuff of life. But when we included the group sessions, there was no more spinning of the wheels in the sand, and almost 30% better results. Startling. And that convinced me I need to talk to James about this. And when we did that, when James and I talked, I said, James, look at this, man. I need to get on board, because James had been talking about community already for a number of years, which is why it got into, I believe it was a primary impetus for the group sessions at Cleveland Clinic, was the impact of James Maskell and the work that he did with all of the principals who were working there. My friends Mark and Mark Hyman and Patrick Hanaway, and the discussions that James had with them and over time, and was a big impetus into the emphasis on group sessions. And I want to just give you guys all one concept of the difference when you think and you operate from group sessions. And it's been in this last couple of years, with this health crisis we've gone through and the action that many people have been mandated to take and all of that, one of the ways that they kept us scared and was talking about social distancing, and you must social distance. And from day one, I said, that is nonsense. Physical distancing may be important. It may be, the idea of don't get too close to someone that's sick and all of that. That's got some value, and the science is pretty clear on that. But social distancing was a purposeful effort to keep us separated and scared in our homes. Physical distancing is important, really important. when somebody's sick, of course, or if you are vulnerable. But I've been saying since day one of this whole thing, don't ever social distance. Physical distance, maybe. So the people, your cousin that you haven't talked to in a year is sitting at home just like you are, probably lonely and afraid. Give them a call, type a message to people that you haven't been able to connect with and see in person. Do not social distance. Physical distance perhaps is a good idea, not social distance. And it's that same concept in healing, that when you need to heal, when you need to move the needle, as James' slides show us, when you need to move the needle because you're spinning in the sand your tires are spinning in the sand trying to get healthier, group sessions have a powerful, powerful impact. And so from that perspective, I'd like to introduce, I'm not sure when I'm supposed to do that, but I'm going to do it now. And that is Elizabeth, who ran the group sessions our first time through. And Elizabeth, I think you're here, but there you are. Yes, thank you. Elizabeth McHugh is the group session leader. And she just did a miraculous job. Every single person in the groups that went through from my tribe worked with Elizabeth, and they had nothing but praise to say how great she was. So Elizabeth, hi, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dr. Tom. I appreciate that. That was a great group too. We have a lot of great groups. That was it was all women, and it was a really connected group. So they made it easy as well.
Oh, so single guys. If you're out there, single guys, you might want to jump on this.
It's the time to shine for sure.
What we wanted to do today, Tom, is actually to add as much value as we could with your community. So, I'm really grateful that Elizabeth's here. As we said, it doesn't, it's about really moving the needle in health. And obviously one part of that is the community. Another part is coaching. And we have master coaches here at HealCommunity, which Elizabeth is our head of coaching. And so we wanted to do today actually for Elizabeth to actually run an exercise with your community. So if you're listening to this and you're watching at home, wherever you're watching, just to maybe to get a piece of paper and a pen and have that kind of ready so that you can fully participate with what Elizabeth is about to take us through. But Elizabeth, I guess, maybe before we get into the workshop part of it, do you want to just sort of, I guess, give your experience of what it's like to work with, each population is different, right? We've run groups that are specific for chronic pain, and we've had groups that are specific for mental health. Obviously, Tom's community, there's a lot of immune, autoimmune, digestive stuff. You want to just share a little bit of your experience with that in that first group?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I find so interesting about running these groups is a lot of the times we get the question is we're so used to having an identity of diagnoses. And is this going to be a diabetes group? Is this going to be an autoimmune group? And Dr. Tom's, your population is very different. There are a lot of different things going on with a lot of different people. And the beautiful thing about these groups is when specifically those women came together, they all had something different going on, but they all resonated that they were on the path to get better. They're all on the same journey to be able to get better. So some people were a little more advanced, some people were just beginning, but they were able to support each other. And that's what makes a group so dynamic and so wonderful, because we're focusing on the behavior, and everyone has to support. Everybody needs support in some ways to be able to manage behaviors, no matter if you're aiming for optimal health or you're just on your journey. And so there's a mentorship and a friendship and I don't want to use the word coalition because that's really strong, but that kind of happened of where they just all bonded together and they called each other on the weeks that we weren't meeting. And this happens with every group that we have, that no matter where they're at in their journey, what diagnosis they have, whatever's going on, people are coming together and they're staying together. I've had groups that have gone through 2 groups in a row that have been with me for a year. They had the opportunity to go and redo it because they wanted to stay in the community. So I think one of the beautiful things that HealCommunity specifically is doing is we focus on, yes, there's so much information in the world, but how do we take this information and apply it? How are we going to break down our steps? What strengths do we have in our life right now to make sure that we're successful to be able to get to wherever we want to be, and understanding how much time that takes? And one of the biggest things is that we're going to fail. And when we fail, there's still a group there that understands the failure. Every week we see someone else fail. And every week we see someone else pick themselves up, be successful. And that relationship and that flow of life that we're seeing with members around us is really, really supportive to make sure that people keep moving forward.
Now, Elizabeth, what do you mean by fail?
So sometimes we set goals. Sometimes we set goals and it's just not realistic. We don't think of, and I'm actually, Dr. Tom, I'm going to take you through setting goals so people can see what we mean today after we workshop a little bit. And they'll not be successful. So instead of getting to walk for 15 minutes, 3 days a week, they only get 1 day a week. And they would consider that a failure. And it's not what I always tell my groups is you have to fail in order to succeed, because you have to be able to identify barriers. Behaviors happen. You're going to go and you're going to get into a habit. Something's going to happen. You're going to relapse. And it's understanding that behavior change. And all that happens is you come to the group and you say, I wasn't successful this week. Say, okay, so what's going to make you successful next week? Great. How are we going to change this? What happened that we can prepare for to make it something that's more manageable?
Great, thank you. That helps, because everybody fails in their efforts. This is chronic disease. We're dealing with things that have been around for a long time, and we all were trained to think, what do I take for this? What pill do I take that's going to get rid of these symptoms? And what people learn, of course, in our group sessions, well, at theDr.com, is that there's never a pill you're going to take to get rid of your symptoms. There's certainly some supplements and pharmaceuticals that may be necessary for a period of time, but it's really lifestyle that's created these chronic diseases. And you don't change lifestyle in a day. And so everybody's going to fall down. My son, I'm always behind him. He's 20 months now. And he runs with his chest out like this and his hands behind him sometimes when he's so excited. And I'm behind him, just ready to catch him if he starts to stumble and fall, But he's on that precipice, just constantly trying to do more. And sometimes he falls. We all fall. And this concept of being in group sessions is just so reinforcing, and it takes the edge off not getting the results you want when you said you were going to get them. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, and especially with these autoimmune populations, we have a lot of flare-ups. And sometimes we don't know what flare-ups cause. That can just be a stress response, and there's a flare-up, and you feel like you ended up back where you are. And because we're hearing other people are having those episodes and we're understanding, we're able to see that, and there's not the loneliness of it. I hear it all the time. The best part of this group is I realize I'm not the only one. There's someone else out there that understands what I'm going through. There's someone else out there that is able to fail with me. I mean, whatever it's going to be, that we can work together and pick ourselves up together, but it's normalizing the way to cure chronic disease. It's normalizing changing our lifestyle. It's normalizing it through our community. Because if you're doing it by yourself, once you fail, you think that you're a failure. You take on that identity as opposed to just seeing what the behavior is. And this is what these relationships really help support.
It's just
Tom, this is the power that I saw, like having worked with 1,000 functional medicine doctors, thousands of them, and then spoken to so many patients who went to these functional medicine doctors. You don't know how different or normal your experience is compared to other people, because you're just having this one private session. And ultimately, what we've seen is that when you put people together that want to get healthy, they have the intention for it, and they're doing it together, the chances of succeeding is just, multiplied, so many. And that's why, ultimately, in the book, I talk about, like, we got to get this everywhere. And ultimately, the purpose of what we wanted to do here today was to give your community an opportunity, for those people who this resonates for, to have an opportunity to be part of that community. So, I guess part of what we wanted to do now, Tom, I think one of the most powerful things that we've found is to actually have people take an inventory of their current support network. And so I was hoping Elizabeth might be able to do, this is actually something that we do early on in the group. And we thought, for everyone here today, how valuable to actually go inside a little bit and take a moment to sort of reflect on, if it is all about lifestyle, and if in your 20-year trajectory of your health, that is going to be determined by how you do these behaviors consistently, then, you know, how well are you set up for that kind of trajectory? So Elizabeth?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically how we do this, we utilize something called breakout groups in our groups. So we actually will break, let's say there's 20 people in the group, we'll break them out into maybe 5 or 6 groups of 3 or 4, depending on the numbers. We have a lot of people today, so we're just going to go ahead and we're going to do this privately. The beautiful thing about these groups is you share as much as you want to or don't want to. So the few things that we're going to talk through is really what we go through in our second meeting is who holds you accountable to your health goals? Where does your accountability come from? Okay, so if you're listening, you guys can put it in the chat if you feel comfortable doing that. The fun thing about putting it in the chat is we'll be able to see, and you'll start seeing connections. I just put here so you guys can see where it is. We'll start seeing connections and similarities of who keeps us accountable. So James put in his men's group. My sister keeps me accountable. My sister, we have all of our oral, or not my cousin. There's actually like 4 or 5 of us in my family that we have all of our watches linked and our Oura rings and everything's linked. And so we keep ourselves accountable that way.
You have your Oura rings linked?
You're able to link your Oura ring in your health app and share your health app data within. So we have like chronometer, we have a bunch of things linked. So we can.
For those who don't know, the Oura ring monitors your pulse, the quality of your sleep, your exercising. It's game changing for people to get that feedback. So what I'm hearing is that with your inner circle, your inner group of family members, you guys are sharing all that information every day. And as a result, that's really being held accountable to someone else. That's powerful.
Especially if you know my sister, she's really holds me accountable. I'll get phone calls. She's like, it's time to get up. Instagram had said her aunt. So there's family. James has his men group. Miss Virginia, I see your hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and give you an opportunity to speak. Go ahead. Do you have a question? You got to unmute yourself. Go ahead, unmute yourself. No, that's okay. All right. So the next question we're going to go to, my wife, a men's group again. Yeah, those men's groups. So it's finding the community. It's finding the community outside of your community. One of the things that we also talk about is there are different communities for different things. We have a community, like I have my football community. There's the guys that I go watch football with on the weekends. I have my health community. I have my work community. I have my coaches community. So there's these little groups that we build to be able to help us be supportive for all the different aspects of our life. The next question that we have is, how well does your family support your food choices? How supportive is it? It's a hard one. This is one I get a lot. I have to cook for the kids and the kids aren't going to eat any of this. How am I going to make a couple meals? It's a very, very common one to have of how am I going to do this within my family, and the kids aren't going to support me. So who's going to support me? Stephen put up that his spouse is supportive as well. So we do have supportive spouses here.
You know, that's a huge problem in the over the years, thousands of people that I've talked to, and the feedback I get is that their husband says, "Where's my bread?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I say, well, if we can just get a test done on your husband who has headaches 2 or 3 times a week, it may give us more information. But the wife in this example is putting up with the flack that she's getting, trying to be gluten-free, you know, in this example. So how do you deal with that? And that's something that you address in detail in these group sessions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And how people with similar autoimmune conditions or similar things, how they're able to eat and how they're able to do that. Yeah. Stephen's talking about his family supports his food choices. The next question is, who do you talk to about when stressful events come up? Who's your person that you go to? Who's the person
do you have someone that you go
have someone to talk to? Yes. Thanks, Dr. Tom. Do you have someone? What exercise do you do? Who holds you accountable to exercise? Do you exercise with anybody? We had when I was working in the office, I worked in a primary care clinic, we would do step challenges. We had a board and people would count their steps and write their steps on a wall. And we do a challenge, like a 1 month challenge to see who got the most steps in by the end of the month. Happy to be Juju, my girls. Family is a big one. I see kids a lot. A lot of people connect over their kids and wanting to make choices based to be there for their children. That's a big one. And the final one is how well are you supported in your choices for your environment? So things like air quality, whether or not perfumes are in there, toxins within the house. It can get as serious as like, what type of bed are you using? Do you have a water filtration system? Do you have, I mean, Dr. Tom is the expert in this, right? I remember you talking about blinds, and I was like, wow, my mom had just put blinds up, and I'm like, wow, we got to talk about your blinds, about the off-gassing of them. But who is helping you and supporting you in making those changes? And it could be very slow changes. But
by the way, Elizabeth, in these group sessions, will be talking about so many of the little pearls that you've heard from me. This is a functional medicine support group. So the platform here. And so any of your questions that you've heard from me, how do I do ... I mean, I tried to get the plants, I got the plant handout from theDr.com, from the studies from NASA to clean the air, but the plants die. What do I do? And that's where group sessions come in, because you can talk about this. You really can't talk about that with me. Yeah. There's not really the opportunity to say, hey, Dr. Tom, I don't have a green thumb. What do I do? That's not a service that we really can give easily, but any problems like that, that's what these groups are for, is so that you can stop spinning your wheels trying to get healthier.
Yes, exactly. And that's with most of our providers. We don't have that opportunity to really dig in to do the how. And so those questions that we just asked you are actually very specific to the 6 pillars that we go through. So we go through building community and setting our intentions. We talk about nutrition. We talk about stress. We talk about movement. We talk about sleep, managing our sleep, and we talk about our environment. And what we do is we give this information. Dr. Tom gives information. He has, he'll give in videos. He'll put in his input when he does that. And then we also give some information, 10 to 15 minutes to teach. And then what we take for the rest, the 60 minutes of the program, is how do we implement this? How do we connect? What if, instead of needing a different person for every single pillar, you just had a group that you came to bi-weekly that understood all of this, was on that same journey? And that's what HealCommunity is doing for you. I just realized that the chat was disabled and the Q&A is where we can answer. Val, that's not you. That was my misunderstanding. This is also the fun part about this. Is what I mean by failing. You will see me fail on Zoom every single time we get together. I am not great on Zoom. So the Q&A is open, so feel free to put things in there. But what I would like to do next is show, love to know what options exist for Venetian blinds that will not outgas. Yeah, absolutely, Mary. One of the things that we do in HealCommunity too, we can get inundated with information and we can get inundated with questions. And the thing that we really believe in is supporting to build self-efficacy to be able to find this information, because we don't always have an expert available for us. So how are we going to be able to, through the 24 weeks, how are we going to be able to find this information and apply it our own? Because there's so much information out there. So that is some of the things that we cover. All right. So Brenda had put, thank you for sharing this, Brenda. Never really thought it out, but I have no one who is on a similar journey. Everyone around me criticized me at food choices, exercise, etc. That's a really, really raw statement to share, and we very much appreciate that. And I think that's one that probably resonates with a lot of people in this group that's here right now, and it resonates in our group. And so what I would say is that we have a HealCommunity for you, where no one is going to criticize your food choices, your exercise. They're going to absolutely understand what's going on, and be by your side as you make whatever changes are available to you during this time.
So look, it took a little bit of guts from Brenda to write that down, to acknowledge it out loud. So if you're out there and if you're not driving right now, type in the response. If you're having the same kind of experience where you just don't have the support system that you need to really move forward. This is not television. This is supposed to be interactive. And I know there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people out there. And Brenda, it took a little courage to do that. Thank you so much. And that is a sign you're going to do great, girl, because you're willing to like expose yourself a little bit and say, I don't have anybody that supports me in this.
Mhm.
Way to go. Way to go.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dr. Tom. All right. So what do we do with all this information once we figure it out? And this is Dr. Tom, this is where I'm going to put you on the spot. This is the most fun for me is creating SMART goals of how we apply this information. I think this is a blast. But again, we talked about how we give this information. We talked about how we connect you, but how do we put these things into action? So Dr. Tom's going to use some courage here to share what one of his goals are. I'm going to share my screen. And this is something that we do together. And this is one of the tools we use to be able to create positive behavior change. Before I jump in, James, is there anything you want to share or add?
No, I think this is good. Let's jump into this.
All right. All right, that's the workbook. I'll jump into that too. So this is what this looks like. Now, Dr. Tom, we'll just jump in and I'll explain as we're doing. What is any goal? It actually doesn't have to be a health goal. A lot of the times we talk about health goals, but what is a goal that you have that you would like to get a result from? What's a result you want?
Oh, and this came up right away in my mind. And yeah, I've been thinking about this. Stop eating carbs at night after dinner.
Okay.
Stop eating carbs at night after dinner.
Okay.
I still have a little bit of a spare tire around my midsection. And I know that this is a trigger, but nighttime, I just want something. So I'll eat some carbs and not necessary. So if I say stop, now the doctor comes in here in my mind and says, okay, so how can you do that? How can you satisfy that craving without eating the carbs? I would talk it out with the person, and I've never done that with myself. I just say, well, I need to stop this. And so being in a group would be where I assume, Elizabeth, I bring this up. So I'll just bring it up and let you take it from there.
Yeah. So tell me what happens after dinner. What are you reaching for? What are you feeling? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, it's the end of the day. Geo goes down. It's about 6:30. We do where we live. We do a scorpion check every night. And, under the bed and behind the beds and in the room and on the curtains, and we do all that. And then I give him a kiss night, and then mommy's putting him down for the next half hour to 45 minutes until he falls asleep. Mm-hmm. And so I come out in the other room and I'm done for the night. My brain is fatigued and it's a little rest time. And so I'll just sit down. Sometimes I'll read something, not often. Sometimes I'll just turn on Netflix and look for some mindless entertainment. And when I'm in that space, that's where I just start going on auto drive, or I want to put something in my mouth. I want something like popcorn and it stops. That's where I stop.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
I didn't know we were going to do this.
Welcome to HealCommunity. That's
right. Does
this happen every night?
Most nights, not quite, but most nights, yeah, I'm wanting, it's a very successful night when I don't eat something, and I'll try something. What's successful is I'll have a piece of watermelon. Great. And that works very well. The other thing that works well is go to sleep early and make sure I get a 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So if I do that, because Gio wakes up at 5:15 every day. If I do that, go to sleep early. If I have a piece of watermelon and then go to sleep early, I'm good. It's been a successful evening, and I haven't fallen prey to that bad habit that keeps the spare tire on my midsection.
Okay. So I'm hearing, as opposed to saying eating carbohydrates at night, utilizing healthier carbohydrates, like utilizing something like fruit, you're okay with.
Right.
Okay.
And it's not a first step for me. It's not where I go automatically. I should, but I don't.
Okay. So when you go for fruit, what typically triggers that? Why do you go for fruit some nights as opposed to others?
I don't know. Our refrigerator is usually full. I mean, we're so grateful for the resources we have available. Organic produce is delivered to us, and so we've got everything we need. But what triggers that? When do I think of fruit? I guess when I'm not distressed by the day. If I'm stressed by the day, if something happened or there's something that caused me distress and unrest in my day, in my mind, then I'm wanting the mindless, carb full feeling. I'm wanting to just step away from the day, turn off, and give me some popcorn or something like that. And it's to suppress the feelings.
Okay.
It's to suppress the sometimes frustration, sometimes distress, not often, but sometimes anger. How could that happen like that? And yeah, so it's when I'm wanting to shut down the feelings.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is it's not so much the carbohydrates, needing the carbohydrates is the issue, but really setting a goal around managing stress after you put Geo down, creating that space to manage stress after you put the baby down.
That's exactly right. And I've never thought about it this way, but that's exactly right. So if I were to journal, if I were to pick up a book and, one of my journals and just write something in it, that might actually dissipate some of that craving that I have. I hadn't thought about that before. That's very good.
Okay. So do you want to set a goal around journaling after putting Geo down?
My first answer was no. But I'm in a group session here, so I'm going to be held accountable. I actually will do that because I do want to change that, that habit. I do want to change that habit. So I will set a goal here. And my goal will be whenever possible, and that should be most evenings, but sometimes we're traveling and it's not as easy. We're not alone. But whenever possible, it should be most evenings, I'm going to sit down with a journal and I will begin writing. I may stay there 3 minutes. I may stay there 30 minutes, but I'll begin writing a little summary of the day and what is not so complete for me in that day. That's very good. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Are you home this week?
This week? No.
Okay.
I am now until Friday.
Okay. So from now to Friday. So what we do here with these goals, we create what's called SMART goals. So we set ourselves up to make sure that it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Mm-hmm. So what day this week can you for sure get this journaling done?
Wednesday and Thursday, today and tomorrow.
Okay. So
that's good. That's good. I can do that.
And Thursday. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so Geo goes to bed around 6:30, 6:45 after the scorpion check. That's what you said?
Right.
Okay. So after Geo goes to bed while your wife is still with him, that's going to be what triggers you. That happens every night.
Right. Right.
When you're home. So
that happens every night. And when we're done here, I'm going to tell Marzi what I've just done so that I'm held accountable.
Okay. 30 minutes. Oh, MRCY, is that right? Did I spell that right? Marzi.
MARZZI.
ZI. Okay, I like that. Marzi. Be held accountable. Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how successful do you feel like you'll be at this?
10.
10. Okay. Why didn't you say a 6?
Why didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have no excuse not to do this. I just have to remember. And because I'm online with hundreds of people right now, and somebody's going to call me out in the future on this one, I'm going to start this.
Does this tie to your bigger goal of what we initially started talking about?
Yeah. It ties to my health goal where I'm spinning my wheels of a spare tire on my midsection.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Tom. This is really helpful. And this is, I love this because what typically happens, and this is where the power of coaching comes in, we started talking about carbohydrates at dinner. And Dr. Tom said it himself, as a physician, the first thing that's going to be told to you is like, well, how much protein and fat are you eating at dinner?
Right.
So with coaching, we're going to sit back and we're going to say, well, tell me what happens. When are you more successful at not getting the carbohydrates in? When do you go? And it's not about the carbohydrates, about what kind of carbohydrates. So we pull back that layer. He's like, well, I'm okay with fruit. Okay. So when do you reach for fruit as opposed to a comfort food? Well, when I've had a really stressful day. Okay. So especially with behavior and especially with health behavior, it is not typically, I just want to lose weight or I just want to do nutrition. There's something behind it that is causing this behavior to go out to happen. And what the coaches are trained to do and what the group is learns to do together is to be able to identify that and to be able to break it down into this baby step. Dr. Tom is going to go do a big goal. He's like, whenever I have time, I'm going to do this. No. What are you going to do this week? We're going to see you next week, typically in the groups. What are you going to do this week to be successful? We're going to make a relevant goal, a reasonable goal that you know you'll be successful. And then we can check in and we'll build on this and we'll create the habits and create that behavior change. And that's what we do. This is what we do every week, not this detailed, but in our conversations, we learn how to do this and then we apply it through the 24 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this whole worksheet, everything I just did, if you didn't work with the coach, this whole worksheet does for you. I just did it verbally to work through it. So thank you so much for that, Dr. Tom. That was wonderful. Appreciate that.
Thanks so much for participating fully in that. I know, I know that this is not new for you as well, with all the work that you've done. So I'm really grateful for you to step in and be a guinea pig. And look, I mean, for everyone who's listening, I mean, the goal that we're trying to create is a way for everyone to have access to be in, to have this sort of supportive community. And what we found is that when we do it through, groups like yours, Tom, is that there's actually so much that people have in common, and to actually come and connect with other people just like them, is a real gift for them. So part of what we're here to do is because we're actually going to kick off the next iteration of our groups together, and we're going to stay on here and definitely take some calls. And if you have questions, put them into the Q&A and we'll get to them. But if you go to theDr.com/HealCommunity, you can see about the next cohort that's starting in October. So just in 2.5 weeks' time, we're going to have a number of cohorts starting, organized into groups. And Elizabeth or one of her elite coaching team are going to take you through this Heal Community program. One of the things to know is just how much more support you're going to get. So one is the coach, right? And you just saw Elizabeth, that's a big part of it. We also have a thing called a PSS, a patient support specialist. Even Elizabeth said sometimes getting on Zoom, getting, hip to the technology, getting organized, we have someone whose job it is to make sure that you're all set. You have your physical workbook. Elizabeth showed you a little bit about that workbook. It's a 109-page workbook that you're going to go through over the 24 weeks. We have a meeting every 2 weeks, just that with everyone in the group, but then, and the group is the third person here. The other piece that we've found to be super value is what we call a progress partner. And the progress partner is essentially, someone who you're paired with, and you might end up being with multiple people over the time, but someone who you can do this kind of thing every week with, so that you have an accountability buddy, someone who you're going to be able to track your progress. You're going to be able to fail together. You're going to be able to succeed together. And this is something that we came to when we first started the groups, because we realized, wow, people get as much value from the other people as they do from the coach and from the curriculum and all the other things that we provide. Ultimately, during the six months, we're going to help you build permanent new behaviors in these 6 areas. And these are the areas that if you have good, healthy behaviors in all of these, you will have a long and healthy life. And ultimately, these are the foundations that functional medicine is built on, that lifestyle medicine is built on. And so the first month, we're going to really connect each other. So we're going to build foundations and community. The second month, we're going to really dive deep into food. And this is such an emotive and typically unsupported area that we're also going to do individualized coaching in this month with one of the coaching team there. So you'll be able to do something similar that what Elizabeth just did, with your coach at that point. Stress, you could see that even though that was a food thing, carbohydrate, it was being driven by stress, right? So stress is the third one. And typically by this point, we have some momentum, right? 3 months in, people are starting to become so much more self-efficacious. They know how to set goals, they know how to make progress, and they have a community of support around them. And then again, movement and exercise could be another tricky one. And so we have one-on-one coaching there. Sleep and natural rhythms, not so much of a communal event, but certainly something where you can learn from other people's experience in creating healthy sleep hygiene. And so healthy sleep hygiene starts in the morning. And so what we really help in all of these areas is to build new behaviors in that area. And the last one is environment and relationships. Obviously in a Dr. Tom community, you guys are very, very knowledgeable about environmental medicine, environmental health, and the environmental inputs that can affect your health. One of the great things about working with groups like yours is just the peer-to-peer delivery of value. If you add up all the things that everyone in your group has gained, there's so much to share there, and so and really powerful. And also we have an app, but this is new actually since we did the first round. So at some point in your program, we will then be connecting you all in an app where you can talk to each other, you can connect with each other, you can set your activities in there, you can set your habits, you can chat with the other people in the group, you can chat with your progress partner, you can chat with your coach, and that's available 24/7. One of the things that I found super valuable going through this is that sometimes you really want to speak to someone at the moment that health is either happening or not happening. And so to be able to reach out sort of out of office hours, right, at 7, 8 at night when you're cooking dinner or reaching for the cookie after dinner or whatever that looks like, to be able to check in with your accountability buddy or to put a reminder, can be really, really powerful in that journey. So this is what we're all about here at HealCommunity, and we're happy to answer any questions. But if you go to theDr.com/HealCommunity, that's where you can find out more about joining. You can see the dates. If you are interested in joining and the dates don't work for you, ultimately, feel free to get in touch with us on that page, or you can go to HealCommunity.com and go into the chat there. But yeah, we're really, really grateful and excited for the opportunity to do this again, Tom. And just from the first round, what I was so excited about is that I know from working with you is that you have a very educated bunch. Right? The people who are working with you know a lot. They know a lot about their health. And ultimately, the big gap that we're filling here at HealCommunity is to take from knowing to doing, and doing consistently and doing permanently. And ultimately, that is the determination of, your long-term longevity, health, and, how you pass that on to your family, to your kids, to all those things. Because I'll tell you what, Tom, is that in a few years, your son will ask you, "Hey, Dad, what are you writing down there every night?" And the impact of that on him and his life will probably be profound as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, James. That's a very good point. And I'm sitting here smiling internally as I was working with Elizabeth on this example, that it could have been easy to say, well, I want to change my diet so I can lose some weight. And then be stuck with, I don't need to change my diet. My diet can't be much cleaner. It actually can't be any cleaner. It's perfect, but I could get caught in that common paradigm, and, I want to lose a spare tire, and it's not, it's modest, but for me, it's not what I want at this point in my life. But I never would have thought where it was coming from. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for that. That was excellent. And this is something I can do very easily. And I say, I better do it, because I know there's going to be people out there that are going to be asking me in a couple of weeks, did you journal last night, Dr. Tom? So and I'm going to say, well, oh, you were on that call. So I'm going to be held accountable, which is what these groups are all about. I'm a information machine, and I download to everyone, really great information about what the science shows for this or shows for that. And we can take all of that in, but that's a cerebral exercise. How do you implement it into everyday life? And once again, you know, the Cleveland Clinic studies put it in perspective. 30% more enhanced quality of life for people that go through group sessions. 30%. And they're on the functional medicine path with some of the best in the world. And they get great results, but 30% better quality of life by their estimations themselves as a result of group sessions. So for everyone out there, please consider this. I think you will be very happy you did. I'm very, very proud to be associated with James, and his passion, which you're starting to taste now, is this strong desire to help the world implement functional medicine, not to teach them functional medicine, but to implement it. You know, and that's been a missing link, and for most of us, which is why we're spinning our tires, because the knowledge is out there, and just how do we implement all of this? So thank you, James, and thank you, Elizabeth. It's really great to be doing this with you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, I guess I want to be respectful of your time because we're coming at the top of the hour. We've had a few questions come in. I'm happy to, you know, to stick around and answer some questions. You know, ultimately, I would say, you know, one of the cool things about this is, you know, the program is initially 24 weeks, and that's how we set you up. But the goal is this can be ongoing. You know, it's interesting. In my book, I talk about Dr. Jeffrey Geller and the groups that he ran. He ran some type 2 diabetes groups in the 90s that still continue today. And the people don't have type 2 diabetes because they've been doing healthy behaviors for 20 years. It turned into like gardening in the summer and salsa dancing in the winter. But like, these people are connected, they're empowered. They, you know, they see each other every week, and you know, they're continually supporting each other in their health goals. And, you know, I guess my dream is that, you know, that the connections that are made over a mutual desire to reverse your autoimmune disease end up, you know, creating lifelong friendships that can be, you know, very supportive for the long term.
Yeah, agreed. And I can stay for a few questions, so
okay.
That's fine.
So this is good for Thomas. Intermittent fasting has helped me control how I eat. I now see that eating is 90% emotional. I want to eat to live, and not live to eat. Amen. I think there's some insight that we already saw from Tom on that. What are your thoughts on that, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I practice clinical nutrition. I'm clinical nutrition as well. And everyone that comes to me, it never has to do with actually the food. We end up getting into the behavior change around the food, and it's typically triggered by stress or emotion. So I think you're dead on, Thomas.
Yeah, Joanne's saying, yeah, sorry, Tom, carry on.
I agree. And I think it's a bumper sticker. That's a great bumper sticker.
That's right. Do you advocate for whole food, plant-based, or some clean animal protein acceptable? That's a good question, because I know, you know, I mean, it's an important but somewhat divisive topic, right? In our world of nutrition. So Elizabeth, do you want to share how we deal with that?
Yes. So it's for the person, right? So everything is individualized, and you have to figure out what works best for you. One of the things I will say is, if you're going to do a whole food plant-based diet, there are some micronutrients that you're just not going to be able to get that you can get from clean animal protein. Definitely want to do clean animal protein, and we speak to that of how am I going to get the micronutrients I need? How am I going to get everything that I need? It's much more difficult. Protein's not as available from whole food plant-based, so you have to work a little harder to be able to get the proteins you need. And we talk through that depending on what's right for the person. It's not the coach's decision to make, it's our patient's decisions to make in the group, and whatever their physician's telling them as well.
I think that's such an important point, because ultimately, you know, what we're doing here, and functional medicine is interesting because it's kind of a halfway house. What we're really talking about here is a healthcare system where the patient is in charge. And obviously you still want experts to support you, and we'll talk about some of that. But, you know, part of this group is almost like giving you permission to wrestle the control for yourself. And sometimes people have to go through a whole health, challenge in order for them to see that it's actually in their control and they can do things in that way. But ultimately, this is sort of like our path back. This is a great question, Elizabeth. How do you decide between multiple goals? Which do you do first?
Yeah, sometimes we have multiple goals. It just depends on what you feel like you can do. So one of the things we do is we set a vision, and then we set intentions, and we break it down from there. And then we decide which goal is going to get us to the attention we want the most quickly, or what is the most important to us right now, or what's the most pressing in regards to our health. So we get our big picture and we break it down so you're able to figure out what's the best first step.
That's great. Tom, I think this is an interesting question for you. So this is a woman called Joanne. She says, I have an appointment at the Cleveland Clinic Functional Medicine Department. I'm trying to solve secondary health issues, brain fog, low energy, weight, cough, associated with acid reflux. I take supplements to control acid reflux with diet lifestyle on my own. I'm traveling from New Jersey to get comprehensive answers that I've not been able to get. Is this appointment a good idea in the search for answers? Follow up, am I expecting too much? I guess it really speaks to, I guess there's two sides of this, the reversing your chronic illness, right? There's the implementation, and then there's getting the right answers. And I think, in most cases, I think the implementation can be off, but if you are executing everything consistently and it's still around, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's an excellent question. It's someone who's been doing their homework already. They've been implementing protocols. They've changed lifestyle, sounds like it, and they're not getting the results they want. They're spinning their tires. But this is a diagnostic imbalance. There's something that hasn't been addressed yet. My term for it is there's an emergency brake. You back out of a driveway and you say, what's wrong with this car? It's going, but it's going so slow. The emergency brake. And you let go of the emergency brake, and then you're great. So it sounds like you're taking the action steps to be healthier, but there's something holding you back. You need a diagnosis for that. And then you need a group, to implement all of that. My suggestion is that you join this ongoing group, because you aren't going to do an ongoing group at Cleveland Clinic. You live in New Jersey. So that's my suggestion. But I think if you've been waiting, I don't know how long the wait list is now. I know it used to be 2 years to get into Cleveland Clinic. So you've been waiting for a while. You've been implementing protocols. You're probably feeling better to some degree, but some things aren't quite right yet. There's an emergency brake, and you have to get a diagnosis. You have to take the diagnostic avenue to figure out what's going on that I've missed.
Awesome. Well, look, I'm grateful for everyone here today. If you go to the chat, you can see that theDr.com/HealCommunity is where you can go to find out, more about the program, all the details. Tom, it's been great to be here with you, and Elizabeth, thank you for handling that so beautifully. And I think it's such a great example of what's possible. And I think I just want to point out, like, that exercise that we went through there with the SMART goals really just refined to me that, like, if you didn't go through that process, or if you went through that process with a medical professional, the actual solution wouldn't match the cause, right? And we talk so much about root cause medicine, and yet a lot of the times, without the support of someone who can really help you go there, you don't really know what the root cause is, because, as you said, a doctor might have said, hey, he's not eating enough fat because he's going for this thing. He's not satiated, so let's change the diet. But actually, it's really zeroing in on what happens and why, what is the root cause, and then, like, a clear action to do that. And what I'll tell you is, because, Tom, because you're a 10 on that, and because I know you'll do it. The confidence that comes from not failing, right? From executing, being successful, is like, wow, I'm more capable than I thought. And ultimately, that's the journey. That's the journey for all of us, is capability, efficacy. And my partner, Gabe Hoffman, one of the quotes that I put at the beginning of his book, he says, empathy is not about feeling each other's pain. It's about seeing each other as capable. Yeah. And I think that's really the power of what happens, is being in a group of people where we see each other as capable first and foremost, and we step into that capacity.
Yeah, that's very powerful. Very powerful. And James, you referenced the book, and I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the hour, that everyone that stays around for this whole thing, James is giving you a copy of his book.
Yeah, I'm going to put it in the chat. So thanks everyone for sticking around. So yeah, I kept the audio rights to this book so that I could have anyone in the world listen to it. So if you go to HealCommunity.com/book, it's available for free. You can go there, you can listen to the whole 3 hours. In fact, the first quote that I just shared, about being able, was the first quote in the book. But in that book, you'll hear all the way through about if you take the functional medicine operating system and you deliver it in a group, it is by far the most effective for heart disease, for type 2 diabetes, for autoimmune disease, for pregnancy, for all of these different things. Ultimately, this community piece is the missing link. And that's why I've been, since I started, doing this book, and even 2015, I did a TED talk on it. I really think this is the thing that turns functional medicine into a thing that a few people do who have some strange diseases to, this is the way that we do healthcare from now on. And so I'm super excited for, to have Tom's community be part of it and to engage with it. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the book. If you go to HealCommunity.com/book, you can listen to it for free, and feel free to share that link with whoever you want. The goal is that everyone, starts to understand the power of community, the power of loneliness. The book was almost called A Cure for Loneliness. But what I realized in writing the book is that, yes, loneliness is being cured, and that's a big deal. But the groups actually create the structure for new and healthy behaviors, and that is the community cure.
Amen.
All right, I think we did it. Thanks everyone for being here. Tom, always a pleasure. It's exciting to connect again and to be in regular touch. And Elizabeth, thanks for putting on such a great show here today. And thanks to the rest of the doctor team. We know how hard everyone's working behind the scenes to keep the train on the tracks and help as many people as possible.
Thank you everyone so much for being here today. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you on down the road.